There's a saying or a comparison I love to go by. It's called doing the dance. So with people, you're doing the dance. It's like you're moving in sync with each other, or you're trying to work each other out. With your life, you're doing the dance. You're trying to, it's you and that. It's you and your work. It's you and your family. You're doing that dance. And I think that self-awareness is you doing the dance with yourself. And if you're not in sync with your wants and needs, as well as your career, your profession, all the things that you hold on to, if they're not in that dance well together, like nothing good will ever come from that. You got to be able to do that dance with yourself. Am I fulfilled in this? Am I getting what I need out of that? You know, it's like not necessarily that you want to be so spontaneous that every time you emotionally feel a feeling, you just drop everything. It's, again, self-awareness, because you need to be able to pull yourself up and go, hey, I'm just being hurt, or I'm being hard on myself, or maybe I'm putting too much pressure, or maybe I just need a breather and I can come back to it.
I've found it really hard throughout all the years of doing all the other shit, especially with design. And then from design, then you have to do all the self-promotion, listening to experts, right? Just, having them saying that this is how you do it. And not even just that, but then I'll look at other creatives and other artists and I try to take inspiration, but often go beyond taking inspiration and almost taking the blueprint, but then realizing the blueprint doesn't work for me because I'm not them. And then I start questioning how come it's not working, and then realizing that, it's not working because it's me. But then thinking that it's a fault. It's like, no. It's not, the problem isn't me. It's just that me and their blueprint doesn't work. So
Well,
then it's a matter of them just being like, you figure it out yourself, dude.
I guess like it's one of those things. It's like you only really make a difference when you're the point of difference. You know what I mean? Copyright. No, I'm kidding. But
You've got so many awesome one-liners.
no, but like, you really make, you've got to have a point of difference. So like just taking a blueprint and thinking that it's going to apply to you in your day to day, like even if you take a blueprint from America, right? Some American dude who's killing it and you bring it to the Australian culture, it's not going to work. So it's like, okay, so how do you, that's why I said, it's like, it's good to move intuitively sometimes because you got to feel it out.
Yeah.
You got to read the room, you got to read the room within your career and yourself. You got to figure out like, oh, cool. What do I want to do? What didn't work? What did work? But if you've set yourself and I'm not saying don't plan ahead. I'm just saying that have goals, set those goals. But I'm a big believer in not overcooking it.
Yeah.
Right. So then you can go, okay, I want to move this way. Let's kind of put some things in place. Right. You don't sit around on your hands and then go, what's next? But put some things in place and then just kind of feel your way through those things. And then see where that takes you.
That's also another thing. When you say goals, goal setting has been a challenge for me. And I've never really given it much thought. Even when I was, working in whatever role on a full-time or on a permanent basis, I never really thought what's next until I just got bored. And then all I did was just jump ship into, I guess, like greener pastures, but then realizing it's like, no, you got to think a bit further ahead than that. It's like, how are you navigating yourself? Like, what's the compass here? And there was never a compass. And then because there was never a compass, there was never really any satisfaction with how things were moving along. So when you say goal setting, I've never given it enough attention, and I don't think many people have. And that could be, I guess, like the core of like dissatisfaction with the work that they're doing. But then also with goal setting, I think that sometimes the goal is there not necessarily for you to achieve, but just to get you going.
Of course.
And then along the way to here, there's going to be opportunities that deviate you over that direction. And then you kind of just go with that momentum over there until something else pops up.
Yeah, write it out.
Yeah. I mean, like, for example, we wouldn't have crossed paths if not for this podcast. And
We might have.
Oh, we might have.
Just hanging out.
Possibly. Yeah. I just bumped into you.
Just people attract people, right? So, no, I feel what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to set those goals and things like that. I think it's really good to have like, how I've seen it is like I visualize kind of where I want to be and who I want to be in that moment, and I aim towards it, but I also allow myself the leeway to change that at any time because I'm constantly changing. I'm not the same dude that I was like a week ago. You know what I mean? Like, so like, for example, when I first started photography, my goal was to be a travel photographer. And then I realized back then it was so hard. Like I'm talking 13 years ago, it was so hard to be a travel photographer. Like it really was. You had to be in with the right people. You had to have the right contacts, things like that, especially as like a 20-year-old, like where the internet wasn't as informative back then. It was a lot harder to reach people. Like LinkedIn has helped with that. Instagram's helped with that, blah, blah. But at the time, it was really hard to kind of bridge that gap. So I had that as a goal, and I worked. And I worked a lot in music. And then my goal changed to be like, go on tours with famous rappers, right? Because that was cool for me back then. That's what I wanted to do. And that goal slowly changed to then, to work with, to be like the touring, to tour and work alongside influential people in like the mental space and spiritual space, political space, whatever I did a little bit of that. Like I reached halfway a lot of the time to where I wanted to be. But what that did was bridge me onto the next thing and the next thing. And when I look back, I've like succeeded in a lot of areas. But at the time when I was succeeding in that area, I still had a goal that was further than where I was. And I hadn't reached it yet. And even though I didn't really reach the peak of all those goals, I did, do really well in my career that had momentum because of that.
When you're saying your goals, is your goal like a tangible achievement, or is it just more of where you want to be yourself here? Like an accomplishment that isn't attached to any kind of external measure, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I guess at the time, my goal was a very physical goal. It was like, I want to be this person doing this. Right. And I think over time, I realized that the more growth that came personally, the better I was at handling the things that I need to do to get to that place.
Yeah.
And it's like a really good saying that it's not my quote, but it's sometimes...
I'm going to attribute it to you though.
Yeah, just say that it's mine, yeah? We'll just, but it's like your talent can get you somewhere that your character can't keep you, which means you could get somewhere that you're super good at what you do, but because of your character, you can't hold on to that, or you can't build on top of it, or things like that. So it's always important to be building on yourself, whether it be the small things, like, well, they're not small things, but some people are small things. It's like, just getting up early, or having a good routine, or having good planning, or having good like reflection on yourself to see where you need improvement. I think self-assessment is super important for everybody. So being able to go, okay, man, you're lacking in this, or you need to get better at that, or hey, you acted out in this way, not just on a professional level, but like on a personal level. It's like being able to like kind of pull yourself up, and being able to do all those things is an important part of everything. So just doing things like that, it's like you learn that along the way, because there's no point me going in and saying that my photos are the best, and if someone gives me criticism, I can't look back and go, yeah, you're right, I could improve here, or hey, your business ethic isn't great, or hey, your system of invoicing is terrible, or your turnaround time, for just talking about photography here, turnaround time is way too long, or you didn't send me enough of this, or, I mean, you should be able to be critical, but yet critical of yourself, but also confident that you're doing the best that you can.
Yeah, man, that's how I kind of see how everything in your life works. We're all multifaceted people, right? So whatever you do in this area of your life, whether or not you like it, is going to carry across to this particular area. For those that can separate their professional and personal, I mean, hats off to you. I don't think I'm capable of that. I don't think that when people say that it's just business, it's like not for me, man. It's everything's personal. I don't know if that's a positive thing, but for me, everything is personal, because I try to see how lessons from one area can transfer across another. So to what you were saying about getting up early, or at least just having that discipline to wake up at a certain time in order to get other things done. It's that discipline that carries across the next thing, right? And it is little things, but like they're all little things. Everything that we do,
they stack.
Yeah, and they all matter. Like as soon as you start breaking this one little rule, what's to say that you can't break it again tomorrow? And then all of a sudden now it's become a habit. Yeah. And all of a sudden now you're just not waking up early.
And you're just a mess. And you're wondering
before you know it.
Why aren't things going my way? It's like, dude, you've slept 12 hours. You stayed up late playing PlayStation. You didn't do all these things. Like, look, and there's no problem with taking a break, but it's I think self-discipline is really important for everybody. And I really value that in people, whether it's paying off financially or personally. I think self discipline is important. And I think I as a personal value, I really value that in people around me. So
You've commented on professionalism in work, and that's self-discipline, right? So I can't imagine how you could be, your whole personal life could be absolutely shambles in every which way, and then professionally you're just killing it. I actually know that I could definitely see that happening. I could definitely see how people would be killing it professionally. But yeah, but
you're
dying
like,
personally.
don't come to my house though, because it's a mess. You know, like that sort of vibe.
Yeah,
But I got kids, so it's a bit different.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm just talking absolute nonsense now because my house is a bit of a mess. But over here, we try to keep it tidy.
Hey, toddlers, dude. Like, there's only so much we can do. You know, like I blink. We just did a big cleanup of the house and like got rid of a bunch of toys or whatever that weren't being played with, and just cleaned up the room. And we stacked everything perfectly. I left the room to go to Coles for like 5 minutes, and everything had been pulled out because my son wanted to look at everything again. And I was like, dude. 3 hours.
It's like that.
3 hours in like 3 seconds. It was just, you know, it's just that's just how it is, you know. So I mean, there's some things that aren't in your hands, but there is ways. It's what you are accountable for is how you handle that, though. You know. So it's like I'm not gonna flip it. I'm like, oh man, hey buddy, just one at a time. Yeah, you've looked at them now. I'm gonna clean this up for another 3 hours. Just one at a time. You know, that's
a lesson,
you can be on top. It's a life lesson, dude. There's some things that are out of your hands that will cause a mess, dude. You know, like there you go. There's some things out of your hands that'll cause a mess. You know, you just got to learn how to deal with those situations.
That's a good point, man. And on a personal, because everything's personal. I'm taking this quite personally because we're like redoing my son's room, and he just got too much shit. So I walk in his room and I'm already getting anxious. Like even just talking about it, I'm like,
yeah,
too much stuff. Simplify, Cole.
Yeah.
So yeah, you are right. You are right. Like there's definitely ways that I could handle those situations a little bit better, and seeing how I could transfer that skill from my professional life into my personal life, and just having more patience and diligence. So that's something that I want to learn a little bit about from people that have achieved goals, or at least just knowing how to set goals. Because I don't know if I really want to attach myself or my drive to a measure that is largely out of my control. And also that requires me trying to figure out what success looks like in different capacities. Like, for example, this podcast, where along the way would I deem this to be successful? And I don't think that I really want to be like, okay, by this episode, I need to have this many views. That for me just feels pretty gross. It feels disingenuous to the work that I'm doing now.
For sure.
Because then it's almost like I'm having this conversation with you and we're trying to create clickbait, which is, it's not. I'm here having this conversation with you because you have this particular life experience, all these different interactions with other creative people and other notable people that you've learned from. So let me tap into that resource and try to see what I can learn through conversation. To be able to attach any kind of like metric to that, saying that this episode will only be successful if it meets these targets, just seems
for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, like that's the whole thing with goal setting. It's you need to be malleable in kind of how that goal will eventuate. Because if you say I want this by this and this date, like I want 1 million views, and I want to interview this person, and then today you get 1 million views from this, you know, someone sees this video and goes, that guy's handsome. They just want to follow. They want to, not kidding. Do you know what I mean? Like, but you know what I mean? You can get all that, and then you get that interview next week. Does the podcast stop now? Like, that's the
thing,
whole
right?
point. So it's like you don't want to. I personally feel, because not everyone operates how I do, but I know that with myself, I'll set those goals and I'll say I want this, and I'll set a couple of tangible goals that I can achieve in the next few months or the next year. I can set ones that are more long term, and then I'll just kind of, again, just not go with the flow, right? But just navigate my goals and my, you know, the things that I need to do to get to that point, and then understand that those goals will change, because it's like a journey, right? If you're hiking and you're trying to go from here to, you know, Mount Macedon, right? If you've got that end goal, you just stay at Mount Macedon, but life just goes until it's done, right? So then it's like, you don't want to just settle in that spot. So then you go, on the way to Macedon, I feel like I also want to start thinking about my next destination. And then that just keeps it going. You know what I mean? So you just keep momentum, and you might not even get to Macedon because you divert to the next thing, but then what, by the end of it, you've realized that you've just lapped the whole country. And you're like, dude, I started off with small things, but if I stayed in Macedon, I would have just been in Macedon. But somehow I've done a lap of the whole country. And that's a weird analogy, but I'm just saying that there's always got to be movement with everything that you do, or else you get stagnant. So if you set an end goal, you're eventually going to get stagnant because you stop.
That goes to another quote of yours, that quote where you said, don't outstay your welcome, not even with yourself.
Yeah.
And that's like, oh, geez, man, that really means that you have to be constantly evaluating everything
100%.
perpetually.
You should always be reevaluating yourself, and don't overstay your welcome, even with yourself. You need to be able to be so self-aware that you can go, hey, like, I'm not the same dude, and I've got different goals now, and I'm really trying to hammer down on something that I might already be done with. You know,
Man, then how do you even get to that place where you have this particular goal and relinquishing the ambition for that goal in pursuit of another? Like, how would you even know internally that this goal is no longer what I should be focusing on? Whatever this goal is, I know that when I go achieve it, it's not going to fulfill me like how I thought it would when I set it however many years ago. How would you even know to recognize that shift?
Good question. And I think it's personal for everybody. So I think for me, I run very passionately, but with intention. I was maybe ran more emotion because I'm a creative at heart still. We run emotionally. So then you got to go, okay, you need to put some like strategy and logic in there. But when I feel that my emotions and passion for something is slowly dying out, so will my drive for that. You know, so, and I'm not saying that you need to just like quit everything as soon as you don't like it anymore, because there's times where I like hated photography. I was like, I'm so done with this. Just wanted to sell my camera. You know, you do persevere and push through, because at the other side of all those moments is usually your biggest breakthrough, because it teaches you resilience and perseverance. But you also need to be so self-aware that goes, if I push through this, will I still want the victory at the end of this, or is there something else that I want? You know, and mine was a better. Mine was more the things, the content that I was shooting, right? And I put so much value on being known as the guy that shot.
Yeah.
So I was like, at the time it was, you know, hip hop, whatever, that culture. And I worked a lot in that industry, and then I was like, I'm known as that. And I said, if I take that away from myself, I said, I stopped shooting this, who am I? And if there's nothing left, I need to build on what's left. And then I go, okay, what am I actually into? And I was listening to so much classical music back then, and I would never tell anybody. It's like, I like some of my favorite composers of all time, I was listening to back in like, you know, 10 years ago. And I still listen to them now. And I was like, okay, I want to start moving more into this world a little bit. And I've done a little bit there. And I was like, you know, and also working more in community, like especially our First Nation communities. Like I was like, you know, this is my mob. I need to do more work in that community. Like my heart's there, and I spend a lot more time there. Like I want to contribute more there. And as times go on, you evolve. But if you don't allow yourself to move there, you're going to get stuck. And I don't want to be 36 doing the stuff that I loved when I was 26. I want to be 36 doing the stuff that I'm going to love for the next 10 years. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's a bit of a process. It's hard to really pinpoint the moment of like, okay, time to pivot, but it's all about self-awareness, you know, and an ego has to go. Like if you're like, I've built this around myself and I have to sustain that, then you're never going to be able to move, because you can't be malleable. You've built up this like castle of who you are, and it's like, man, you got to like venture out a little bit, you know, like you got to explore. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's really hard to pinpoint, and I think it could be like a full, you know, 2-hour conversation on when do I pivot away from what I've been doing? How do I change who I am and let go of that? Like it's hard, but it's, you know, I mean, you doing this podcast is that, you know?
Yeah, for me, what happened was that I realized exactly what you said, that I attached myself too much to the work. And when things weren't going as I thought they would go, when things, I guess, were dipping on that part of it, then it felt personal. So I guess that'll be one of the drawbacks of taking everything personally, is that I'm just too much attached to what I do, to the point where then that's when I had to let go and be like, actually, you know what? I've got to stop giving a shit about what other people think, because they don't have the capacity to care about what I do as much as I do, nor what I do should be controlled by the opinion of others. Definitely, listen and take it for what you will. But I think I attach too much to external validation and began to ask questions rather than thinking I had the answers. So like sitting here, having these conversations is me trying to learn and understand different modes of thinking and different tempos of working as well, and just being freer and like you said, just to be more malleable as well, instead of being so rigid. So yeah, this podcast is an example of that, and I think it just comes down to just letting go of a lot of stuff, and to your point, just being self-aware and just knowing that like I was flawed bad. And what I mean by that, it was the qualities that I thought were my strengths were the things that were actually holding me back. So I just had to let go of some of that.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a saying or a comparison I love to go by. It's called doing the dance. So with people, you're doing the dance. It's like you're moving in sync with each other, or you're trying to work each other out. With your life, you're doing the dance. You're trying to, it's you and that. It's you and your work. It's you and your family. You're doing that dance. And I think that self-awareness is you doing the dance with yourself. And if you're not in sync with your wants and needs, as well as your career, your profession, all the things that you hold on to, if they're not in that dance well together, it's a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
Right? And nothing will ever like nothing good will ever come from that. You got to be able to do that dance with yourself and go, okay, like, am I fulfilled in this? Am I getting what I need out of that? It's like not necessarily that you want to be so spontaneous that every time you emotionally feel a feeling, you just drop everything. Like, it's, again, self-awareness, because you need to be able to pull yourself up and go, hey, I'm being hurt, or I'm being hard on myself, or maybe I'm putting too much pressure, or maybe I just need a breather and I can come back to it. Like the amount of breathers I've taken from my creative craft and come back to it. Like I haven't posted a film photo in probably months. I haven't used my film camera in probably 4 or 5 months because I felt like it wasn't fulfilling me the way that it was. But it doesn't mean I can't go back to it. I'm just doing that dance. I'm like, okay, I'm not feeling this right now. Like this doesn't affect who I am as a creative, doesn't affect who I am as a photographer. I think the pressure to do so much all the time, can hinder our movement sometimes. Yeah. And then you're like, hey, maybe I'm not doing what I need to do because I feel like I have to, especially with the age of social media. It's like you need to constantly be, if you're not making a podcast every week, you're going to be this. And if you're not taking this many photos, and like I consciously haven't been posting regularly for like the last probably 2 years purposely so that I can evaluate. It's like, what do I actually want to shoot? And it's probably been my busiest 2 years. My most successful 2 years on paper has been the last 2 years. And I put less pressure on myself to perform for others and go, I'm doing this because I like doing this, and I'm doing this because this is what I want to do, and it's serving a purpose in my life, and this is not for an external audience. This is for myself. And I'll share things, like obviously there's achievements that I'm like, it's good for my portfolio and it's good for people to see. And then there's any big companies that will go, hey, what has this guy done? And they come on, they're like, oh, this guy's done some cool stuff. I'll post a bunch of those, but there's no real pressure to stick to the script, because it's like when you do that, sometimes you kind of lead yourself in a direction that you're not meant to be.
So if you don't think it's a coincidence that the last couple of years you have been less present on social media, but more successful in your professional capacity, if that's not a coincidence, then why do we feel as though that they have to be in alignment? Why do we feel as though that social media presence, and the more that we can inject into that, is going to equate to more success outside of that?
Yeah. I guess for me it's good now because there's more intention with what I'm doing. And there's less like, I need everyone to see what I'm doing and just doing the stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I've worked my hardest. Like all the things that I need to do, which is like a lot of things to keep my business doing well and succeeding, I can do behind the scenes without having to also do those things and performing for an audience, which I think not everyone is doing that. And there's some people that, their online presence is very authentic. I'm just talking about my experience. It was like, do I need to be posting nonstop for me to be successful? Probably not. But I felt the need to, because that's how online validation works, So again, this doesn't have to be for everybody. I'm just saying, I guess for myself, and I would say for many other creatives, it's like, put less emphasis on how you look online and more emphasis on what you're doing behind the scenes to get that. So it's like, a lot of people's fulfillment will come from that validation of likes and follows and things like that. And sometimes that can hinder really the direction of what you're going. Like, I know I'll post a reel of nature and it's just a tree with some, like, the audio that I've recorded. And I'm like, this is really speaking to me, because I'm still a creative at heart. I'm not just a product, right? So, and I'll post it and it'll get like, a couple hundred likes and you're like, oh, but then I'll post something that's to do with a celebrity or whatever and you get 500,000 views and you're like, oh, okay. Like, but I'm still in that equation. Like, I still want to be able to express what I'm doing. So yeah, I guess social media can cloud that for a lot of people and build a pressure to do the things for likes rather than to do the things that fulfill you. And finding that balance between the two is so important.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that, like, one of the challenges that we have as creatives is when you're creating, I guess just by definition, it's something that hasn't previously existed, right? And so you're moving into new territory, unexplored areas. So by virtue of that, we don't know what it's like to be in that space until we are in it. And if you're creating something that no one has seen before, when you're feeding it back in the machine, there's no way that the algorithms are going to be able to determine whether or not that's good, right? It's going to be left to the people. But how that machine is designed is that it is going to look at what has previously been liked, and if it's not a replica of that or hasn't taken enough influence from that, then it's not going to do well.
No. Yeah.
So if you're going to be too jarring, and if you're going to deviate too far away, then just by virtue, you're not going to succeed according to the algorithms. But I think that the very nature of creating means that you do have to break away from what the algorithms are telling you to do.
Yeah.
So maybe that should be the metric. The metric is that if it does poorly, then you're doing all right.
Sometimes, yeah. And I guess that's the thing. It's like, if your thing is you want to use it as a creative outlet, then so be it. Some people use social media as a branding tool to, like, sell products or whatever. You kind of have to work with that algorithm. Like, I understand that. Like, I have people that got clothing brands and all these other things. They don't want to be hyper creatives. They want to sell product. So it makes sense for them to do all those sort of things. I'm speaking purely to the creatives who are like, I want to do something different and I want to share it to people. And if people don't pick it up straight away, like, don't be disheartened. Like, if it takes some time, just chill. Like, it might be that it hits the right audience if that's what your goal is. But don't stop doing what you're doing. Like, some of my favorite work I haven't even put on social media. Some of my favorite photos that are sentimental to me, or videos and things like that, they're not up yet. Like, I just keep them to myself. One of my favorite videos has been sitting on my computer for nearly a year. And that's the thing. It's like, that's just for me, So I've got other projects that have been in the works for like 2 to 3 years and I'm actively doing them. And I'm like, people can wait to see that, There's a real pressure to just like churn and burn, bang, 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 bang. And it's just like, you're going to burn out mentally, creatively and things like that. And unless you're really wanting to be like, look, if you're using Instagram as an influencer space where you want to make money, things like that, do it. Make your income. But we're talking about something very different here. We're talking about, the attachment to your work and the creative process. Like, I'm definitely not against people just like working out the algorithm and doing what they need to get that, and then that's their whole career is built around that influencer lifestyle. If that's what you want to do and that's your outlet, completely do it. But like we're talking about the creatives here that are like, I know some people that are probably the best photographers in Melbourne. Like I look at them, I go, damn man, I've been doing this so long and they're killing me, right? And they'll get no views, no likes, blah blah. And I'm like, and it might be disheartening to them. Like, just keep going because eventually you'll find your people.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you'll find a group of people that love it. But you know, as long as you're built, if your goal is to do it full time and make a living out of it, that's a different tool. Like you now you got to put your business brain on and you need to do it a different way. But if you're using it completely as an outlet, just keep creating.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good point. Just recognizing the platform for you. It is essentially a tool. And you know, how did you want to utilize that tool and how does that fit into the toolbox of everything else?
Because I don't use Instagram as a way to make money. I just show people my stuff. I go
behind the scenes. It is indirectly how you're going to make money. Like how else?
It's my portfolio, right? So, but there is like, I guess if we're now talking about the business side of it, like I do a lot of, you know, like I'll contact and hit up all these clients and then put proposals together and put decks together so they get to see my work. But we're talking about as a platform, like just for expression, that's more what it is, you know? So, I mean, if you want to separate those two, you can. If you don't, that's fine as well. But it's just work for me.
Are you still doing a lot of cold calling, or are you now just working off
not as much now existing relationships? I will. By cold calling, I'm not going out to a bunch of people saying this is what I do. I'm very intentional with who I hit up, and the projects that I put forward. So there'll be clients, whether they're international or here, that I'll go, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to do it. This is what I can offer, blah, blah. And I'll work on that relationship. I still do that quite a lot. I think you have to. And I will always keep in contact with clients that I work with consistently. So there's a bunch of clients that at the start of the year, I'll be like, hey guys, great working with you last year. Really looking forward to the year. And I'll kind of keep that relationship going. That's important on a business level, you know, to be not just call me when you need me, but to have that personal relationship, you know. But cold calling, not so much. No.
Yep.
No, I think at the point of where I'm at now, I'm a bit more, I'm building projects and being a bit more selective with who I reach out to.
Having worked with some pretty high caliber professionals in their own respects, then it just kind of puts you on this particular level where it's easier to then move around in those circles as well, because you know, like most of the work that you're going to be getting is just going to be coming through recommendations and word of mouth, I'd imagine at this point, right?
A little bit, yeah, for sure. And I think relationship building, you know, and I think that one thing that I think is important is always keeping good relationship with anyone you meet. Like if nothing comes of the podcast today, things like that, you and I'll always keep a relationship there. Like with people, you always, I feel like leaving a good taste in someone's mouth. Oh, that sounds a bit weird actually. Pause.
I'm leaving that in, by the way.
Damn. Leaving a good taste in somebody's mouth. But no, like, you know, like leaving a good impression when you leave somebody, doesn't matter who it is super important.
Yeah.
And that's not saying being fake. I think it's just treating people with respect and kindness is so important because you don't know where that's going to take you.
I think just doing it to be kind for kindness' sake is
that's what I mean. It's just like, I think that's an important thing. Like the last memory someone has of you, it's not that it's important, but it's a good value to have, to be like, hey, like I try and value myself on, you know, being kind and giving time to anybody I can and things like that. And I think if I don't give that impression when I've met you, maybe I need to reevaluate myself. That doesn't mean I'm going to not butt heads with people. There's people that our values don't align and we're not going to be good, and that's okay. Like, but I'll respect that from a distance. But with most people, you can usually meet eye to eye on a lot of things, and being able to do that with many people, you don't know what that relationship's going to bring, you know? And that's not saying be kind to people to get something out of them. It's just like, you know, when you've done that enough, people will remember that. And then if you've got something to bring to the table, they'll probably recommend you, you know? Like a lot of the relationships that I've got in work, I've met outside of work, you know?
You should be kind for the sake of being kind, but it will come back. And I think that there has to be an underlying, you know, you don't necessarily need to form these relationships expecting some sort of reciprocation, but just by being genuine and just showing some respect and some kindness, it will eventually come back to you.
For sure. No, I agree. And I think, it's a good value for most people to have, is like that and compassion. You know, it's just like we should all have that. I love my thing that I really I think my driving force that I've realized over like the last 13 years is I love people. Like I like seeing how people tick in certain situations, and like working with like high caliber people. Man, I couldn't imagine being that famous or that successful, and the whole world is just like wanting attention and wanting to speak to you and wanting, like, I remember John Jones getting dropped off to the airport and people just swarming, and I'm like, if that was me, I'd be stressed. Like, if I had that many people swarming me, I'd be like, fuck off. You know what I mean? Like, with that being, I'd be like, you're stressing me out a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, I guess after a couple of years of that, it would be overwhelming. But some people I've seen just like so much compassion and so much time for others. And it's like, it's been really interesting watching some of these high caliber people navigate their own personal journeys and being able to see that in real time, because the internet and TV can show you snippets of someone else's view of that person. Like whoever filmed this interview will show you what they think of that person. Whoever, or whoever's, like, if they're filming themselves, they'll show you a version of themselves that they want to show you. But when you're with them in the real world, you're getting that authentic person with all their bells and whistles and all their flaws and all the things that are good about them. And it's interesting seeing people in a high caliber, situation of their lives where they got a lot of attention, and with a lot of success comes a lot of expectations and all these things on top of their head, and seeing how they navigate the world is such an interesting thing. And it's people that you don't expect who really surprise you. And then there's people that you expect more out of that let you down. And you're just like, oh, and that's my own. And that becomes a me problem, because I go, oh man, I've had expectations of this person and they're still human. Or, oh man, I thought they would act like this, and they're like a human that's worked on that. Right. So then I meet them when they're at that place in their life, and you're like, dude, you're great. Like you really did something that not many people can do on a personal level.
And I've always wondered about, like, much like everyone else, I would look at someone and a celebrity, a notable person, and I would immediately pass judgment just on the very little I know about them, right?
Yeah.
Even let's just say like movie stars, the characters they play, I'm like, I don't like that person.
Yeah.
That's because they played a character I didn't like. And I've projected that onto them. But yeah, I guess like when you say that these prolific people and you learn a lot from them just from being around them, I don't think it's a coincidence that some of these people are where they're at, and dealing with all the extra layers that they have to, the complexities of being a notable person. Like we were just saying just off camera then that, walking down the street and having someone just be like, hey, fuck you. I wouldn't know what to do about that.
To Izzy, yeah?
Or just, or just, it's to anybody. Like, even, did you ever see More Than a Game? I think it was More Than a Game. The LeBron James is a documentary that was in his high school. When he was like 15, 16, he'd be going into some diner and some grown-ass adult would just start laying into him like, dude, relax. Just a kid. I don't know how, these people are just doing what they love. And it just so happens that particular thing gains a bit of traction. They're in the public spotlight. And then because they have a public profile, they almost become property, or they have an image that becomes public property.
And if you don't live up to that, then you're in big trouble. You know what I mean? Like,
and those standards are... It's impossible. It's impossible to live up to those standards because they're always going to be moving and always going to be shifting.
People will remember it. So, like, a good example. So we were talking about that stuff with, Israel, Adesanya, Izzy, when he was in the street and some guy started him and he was just like, all right, let's go. Like he cracked it back. But what you don't see is the thousands, like as a fighter, everyone wants to fight you because they just want to test themselves. It's just like when I go to these conventions with like Neil deGrasse Tyson, everyone wants to prove him wrong and be smarter than him because it's their own personal thing. And they'll say things and you just see his brain going, this again. And he has to be gentle with these people, right? Same thing with Izzy. He has to be gentle with these people and like let them down nicely, right? And the one time that he goes, you've caught him on a bad day, some stuff's happened. We've all had those days. Like I'll have a day where I'm just like, like we've all had those days. No words needed. Just like, that's it, right? and you catch them on the day and it gets filmed and everyone's like, oh, look, he's this and that. And people would judge you because unfortunately with the internet, most people are verbal about drama, right?
Yeah.
Like the amount of comments you'll see about, oh, you're this, this, and this. But if you're succeeding in life, you don't see as many people cheering you on, right? They'll watch you from a distance. I'm talking about like the internet as a whole these days, not people in your life. If you're surrounded by people that are like giving you a hard time, you've got to change your circle. Like a little bit, you know what I mean? Like if everything you do is micromanaged and every time you just say the wrong thing, they're just like, see, you're a bad guy. Either you're the worst dude ever, which be self-aware, but if not, maybe you're in the wrong place.
Dude,
but
that also goes back to what we were saying about like knowing when to, if you've outstayed that welcome. It's like, how do you know if it's you or it's the environment?
Self-awareness. I think I see where you and I are very different is you take things very personally. I'm the opposite. I try to take absolutely nothing personally. And I try and step out of myself a little bit. And, and I think that's really helped me. Like if a client that I've had for a long time decides to not work with me and work with somebody else, I'll take a step back and go, okay, so what was the reasoning? Things like that. I go, okay, I try not to take it personally. I go, either they've changed their direction or if this other person's better, why are they better? Okay, cool. That makes a lot of sense. And I've lost so many clients in the past, right? But like emotionally and mentally, not take it personally. Just go, okay, no worries. Why? Blah, blah. And I think that it's important to not take a lot of things personally. And when it comes to yourself and your relationships or your friendships, I've probably said things not meaning it that have really hurt someone's feelings.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. When I say take things personally, I don't mean to take offense necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that I'm not great at separating professional from personal.
Okay.
But also like there's going to be some sort of like objective layer to it all, right? So, and of course like you lose a lot of clients along the way and I don't take that as a personal attack.
For sure.
But when I say that I take things personally is I suppose that it's more of what are the lessons that I've taken professionally from that, and then how do I apply that to my personal life? I'm saying that I don't see that that for me that there is no clear line drawn in the sand saying that, all right, business hat on, personal hat on. Like I'm crossing over both. With you, like as a creative, as any creative, you're taking inspiration and you're absorbing from everything, right? So, that there's no way for me to necessarily cut off and compartmentalize this experience and saying that this is only for this.
Yep.
There's just so much to unpack in every one thing that I just see how it's transferable across. So yeah, the personal thing isn't necessarily about like, it's probably not, I don't mean it in the conventional sense that I feel like it's an attack.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I guess with the whole people of influence thing, we're going to catch those guys or girls or whoever on every now and then on a day that isn't their best day, right? And then the world can tend to judge people at your worst rather than when you're at your best sometimes.
I think they want to though. They're out there looking for it. They want it.
People above us, they like to break people down. And I think that unfortunately there's still something subconsciously with a lot of people where it's like someone that's way ahead of you or highly successful, they want to see you like the humanity in you by breaking you down a little bit. Yeah, you're a success, but you're a failure. So now I feel better about myself. But if you really want to get down to it, the best way to see someone's like failures is to turn them human, but to not judge them against it. I think that what I've found with humans who maybe aren't so happy within themselves or they're insecure within their own selves, they like to build narratives around others that make them feel better about themselves. Right? Yeah. So it's like, we're talking about like, you can talk about people of influence or, we're talking about NBA, like UFC fighters or talk about scientists or whatever. You can have a real hectic view of this person and be like, nah, they're evil because, or they're not good because blah, blah. And you can build a full narrative. Like if I really out of nowhere just wanted to be nasty and just build a narrative around you from like the 3 things that I know about you as a person, I could. And then I could just stack everything, and everything that you do is traced back to this bad part of you. It's easy to do. But what kind of person are you to do that? Why would you want to build negative narratives around somebody, especially when they've openly shown that they're trying to do the right thing? It's like, why would you want to build negative narratives around that all the time? It's like, I think that says more about the individual. Like I think I'm all for growth. There's people that I literally I think in my 20s, maybe when I was a bit more, again, emotionally driven rather than trying to move logically, I built full narratives in my head about they're the worst because of this, and they're like almost like my nemesis or my enemy, or they said this to me the wrong way, they're the worst person. And then when I actually sat with them and had an open mind about the person, I was like, oh, dude, I misjudged you completely. And being able to be self-aware enough to do that is so important, because you miss opportunities to get to know somebody who might teach, because they're so different to you, they're going to teach you some stuff. Yeah. Like I know there was a friend that I had for years who taught me so much about just like, I guess, business stuff and all this sort of stuff that maybe I wouldn't have valued. But we're very different people. He taught me a lot, right? But then, you know, I could have just judged him on a few different things that were different, and we operated differently, and I could have been like, nah, this guy's like this, you know? And we miss key opportunities with each other, you know? It's like so much growth comes from the differences in us. And if even with these like celebrities who have had these, we're talking about celebrities before, or people of influence, right? Take the word celebrity out of it. People of influence who are like prominent now, who have had issues or problems or something that's happened in their lives that have made you go, ooh, you dropped the ball. The victory story that should come after that should inspire you more than the negativity that comes from doubling down on the thing that they did wrong. Because I'll be honest with you, like if I've got a friend or someone that I know that goes, yeah, but you did this 3 years ago, I'll be like, dude, well, have we not spoken in 3 years? I was seeing you every week, you know. But you're like this, you know. You're like that, like just bringing up stuff like that I've consciously worked on, and I go, hey, like if you're still doubling down on that, you know, you need to work on yourself. Why are you focusing on that? And as people, we can tend to do that. There's people. That's why even people that I've had conflict with in the past on a personal level, if I need to forgive you and I need to move forward, and I hope that you can do the same, because when I meet you again in the future and when we've both worked on ourselves, I hope that we can be like, awesome. Like, I see who you are now. You know, I see where you're at now, but I'll be blinded by my past experience with you if I try and come into that and be like, yeah, you might be better now, but it's all fake because 4 years ago you did this. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
it's all fake. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's like so many people have that narrative. It's just like they're so quick to judge and try and break somebody down, especially people that they love the most. And a lot of the ridicule that goes towards some of these people of influence is usually coming from people that love them the most. And they're like, oh, but you did this, so you disappointed me, and I'm just going to hold it against you for the next 5 years. It's like, come on now. Like,
yeah, I've been thinking a bit about that. And the tearing people down, something that I kind of resolved not that long ago is that imposter syndrome and tall poppy syndrome exist in the same space. They are one and the same. So it's easy for people to tear other people down if they're not feeling comfortable in their own skin.
Yeah.
And I know that just through personal experience. Like, if I feel as though that I'm starting to derail and going off track, then I can start picking apart the faults and flaws in other people. But when things are starting to feel good here, then I couldn't care less what's going on with other people. It would be great to see other people achieve. And, you know, like, especially on this particular platform, if I have a guest on and then they start excelling and going beyond me, then it's like, awesome. Then hopefully just through your success, people will now see the episode and jump on. And then, you know, it's that community mindset, you know, what's good for one is good for everyone. But on the other way around, it could just, I understand why people tear others down. Like, I've been in that space. And
I think we all have. We're humans, right?
Yeah.
We've all been we've all had very similar
we have
emotions. Yeah. Every human. It's just like, but how we deal with that and navigate that is our own business.
So then that goes back to what you're saying about having that self-awareness. Like, if you're shitting on someone, it's like, why? Ask yourself why. Like, what good is it bringing you? Like, how does it make you feel? Definitely not better. I mean, you're getting that rush of adrenaline, that endorphins, just like, oh, that you know, the angst has been pent up. It's like, it fucking feels good. But how are you channeling that? But I want to ask you about these people that you have worked alongside, you've collaborated with, and because they're not at that position by accident. Like, what are some of the things that you have learnt from them and have like brought into the fold of your life in your work?
I guess spending time with these people, a lot of the time one-on-one, has shown me that all people of great success are just humans. And I think that we build these whole, like, sometimes we build an image around a person. Again, like that castle, like they have to be like this, this, and this for them to be this. And these guys have achieved amazing things, but they still like have to brush their teeth every day. You hope they still have to wake up. They still have to they still check their phone. They still worry about their loved ones. They still, hopefully, look after their own issues, because we all deal with our own shit, right? They still have to deal with their own shit, right? Everyone individually is on their own level, and they still 99.9% of the time enjoy the things that they enjoy the most in the world aren't the things that they're doing.
Okay.
For example, I worked with a scientist who is prolific astrophysicist, and spending a couple of weeks on the road with him, his like passion is wine, not to get drunk, but he just loves smelling wine.
Neil deGrasse.
And Neil deGrasse Tyson loves wine. Loves wine. He would carry a cork with him and he'd just like smell it, and he's like, oh, this one, this. And I'm like, and at the end of the tour, he's like, oh, I got this gift for you. And he gave me a cork from the tour, and it was like a big deal for him. And I'm like, dude, like, he loves wine, not because he likes to get drunk or whatever, but because he loves like the process of wine and what it is, because that's what he gets excited for, And it's always good to have something outside of your profession or whatever it is that you're doing that is like almost like an outlet for you, and getting to know these people and finding out that they've all got these unique little outlets is it's like the humanity or like their humor. Like everyone's so unique, Again, like when you get someone on like the TV, you're getting their PR, you're getting their spokesperson, or you're getting whoever filmed that and whoever's interviewing them. That's their version
Through that filter, yeah.
All the people today are going to get is the version of me that's with you, right?
Yeah.
But I'm still like a very different person. Like we're all like that, and meeting these people one-on-one is the same. It's like when you sit with them and spend time with them, they get comfortable enough to open up to you. You're just like, man, you're just a person that likes enjoying these things. And I think building humanity into success is such a powerful tool. I don't have to be an image of perfection that all I do is wake up, take photos, succeed, victory. Yeah, like you see all these like these videos online where it's like, if you want to succeed, you need to do blah, 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 blah. And there's all these crazy things, and it's some guy sprinting at 4 a.m. and then like eating 15 eggs at like 6 a.m. And you're just like, cool, man. Like that's cool. Maybe that works for him because that's what he wants to do. But I'm sure that dude has other stuff that he's into. But when you actually build humanity into success, you're like, it's tangible for you because you're going to be less hard on yourself, and you also give yourself enough room to be a human in the process. You don't want to be robotic. If I wanted to be the best photographer and I just took away every part of me that's emotional and the things that I enjoy and just said, every morning I wake up and I cold call and then I get all these clients and then I just move like this, blah, blah. And by the end of it, I become the number one photographer in the world with the most followers and everything like that. But then if I'm not a human in the process, it's like, have I enjoyed that process? It's like, at the end of the day, I'm going to die in like 150 years. You know what I mean? And whatever I've done in that process and whatever I've done in my life, I'll remember all those things, It's like you got to build that humanity into it. Like the moments I enjoy the most aren't the moments that I'm shooting. The moments that I enjoy the most are like personal moments with individuals. The things that I enjoy the most at the moment, are those moments. The things that I enjoy the most are like travel without taking photos of it at the moment. That's at the moment, right? These are these personal things for me. And at the end of my life, those are the things I'll remember. Not how many likes and follows I got, or not the amount of clients I had. It might be cool, but it's just like, and that's me personally. That's my human journey, And seeing these celebrities and these high caliber people living their human journey and living out, like seeing UFC fighters live outside the ring, seeing scientists live outside the lab, seeing like rappers and musicians living off the stage. That's the thing that's so exciting because it's like these guys are just they're doing their lives the same way. They're failing. They're succeeding. They're having life journeys. They're having life lessons. They're doing all these things, where they'll learn from it or they'll fail. Like it's a beautiful thing to see it.
Yeah, I really like that. I like that idea of just trying to humanize every part of your journey and of your life, and that is something that I've definitely I can get quite distant from when you're trying to be so pragmatic. And measured in everything, and that's something that I definitely have to try to relinquish a little bit, and just kind of live in these particular moments and just And I think what you were saying also just ties back into what are the different areas in your life that you can bring in and feed back into your pursuits. Because if you could be one of those people that is locked in and hard 24/7 on one particular thing. But what are you giving up for that? You know, there's opportunity cost everywhere.
I think people assume being locked in means that at all times you're only doing one thing. It's like being locked in means that you're also, like, as humans, you need to go, what are my needs as a human as well? Because it's like I can be like, all right, I want this tree to grow and bear fruit, but if I'm not watering that thing, I can be locked in and be like, I'm pruning it, sitting in the sun, whatever. But if you're not like also refueling that, that's not locked in. That you're gonna burn out.
Yeah. You got to create the space,
dude. 100%. You got to create, and you got to create space for yourself, like self-learning. You know, like being locked in is being self-disciplined in the sense of,
knowing when to stop,
knowing when to stop and go. Okay, I'm going to burn out in 3 months if I go at this rate. So for longevity, I should take care of myself and only do this. You know, if sometimes like I can't speak, you know, because I go on a tour where I wake up in the morning at like 6 a.m. and I edit, and then I'll spend 2 weeks on the road with this person, and I'll be working nonstop all day, running around like crazy. Like I say that I either put on weight or I lose weight on a tour because I'm never stable, right? So it's like that's how I know. I'm like, dude, I came out of that and I was like cooked. And at the end of the day, everyone goes to bed, and then I got to edit everything and then dump it and blah blah. So you're not sleeping. That's not sustainable, right? I can do that for those 2-3 weeks, but I'm locked in. But I know that I can't do that forever. So I know that I've got 2 weeks of this, bang. So that doesn't mean not having really good work ethic and working nonstop. Sometimes you got to do that, whether it be for a couple months, but you just need to be sustainable.
What's the prep like for something like that? We're talking not just, just the whole mental, physical. Do you actively get yourself in a position where you can just take on those projects,
just
or is
prayer,
it just
dude? No, sometimes. Well, maybe sometimes, but I think like I look at the workload, and I know that I need to add a little bit more to what I've been told I'm going to do, because it's always going to be more. And then I go, how much rest do I need leading up to it, and how much time do I need after it to recover? Because if I just try and roll on to the next thing, it's a disaster. I know that's for myself. I know that coming back completely depleted from something and then trying to come in and do a good job at something else afterwards, I'm just going to be, I'm going to give like, and sometimes you can't help it. Like I've had a really big tour, and then 2 days afterwards, I've had to like hit the road on something else. Feb last year, I had the Tom Brady tour, and then the next day had to shoot for Ludovico Einaudí's tour, which is like a famous composer, and then have the photos sent to him that night. And then I was on a flight at 6 a.m. the next morning for the John Jones tour. So it was like 3 absolute units that I was like, I'm not going to miss this. But they were so back to back that I'm like, I need to go. When I start Tom's tour, I'm basically not finishing till the end of this, plus a little bit. And I need to be prepared for that, So sometimes you just got to knuckle down and do your best and just be like, you know what, I'm going to be wrecked and I'm going to be a mess, but I've got to do my best. But just know that at the end of it,
there's respite.
Rest. If you don't rest, you're not going to be good later.
I've wondered about how some performers, how they go about doing something like as back to back and as physically and emotionally demanding as like a world tour, where there's no retakes. Like when you're on stage and you just have to be on, people pay good money to see you as well. Even if they didn't pay good money, they're giving up their evening or whatever it may be to go see you, and you've got to be on. You've got to be up there with a smile on your face. Like there are some people that go to jobs and they don't have to be on top of things. They could have an off day, and that's fine. Like you could just, had a late night, and you're just going to half-ass it that day and just get through it, and then, just get your rest that evening. But there are some professions you just can't. Like even, you've worked with athletes. They they cannot have an off performance.
No.
They just can't.
No.
Like, with combat sports, an off performance is detrimental, man.
It's a concussion.
Like, it's concussion.
It's pretty funny. No, sorry, it's not funny. But it's pretty intense. Like it's like if you have an off day on the stage, but if you're a singer or something, if you have an off day, it's like, oh boo, people will film it, putting it online. This person sucks now. But then you just get over it. Like I just watched the Avicii thing, and when a documentary, and when he brought out his second last album, he did it as a live set, and everyone's like, he's the worst ever, like this was terrible, blah blah. But then he gets to perform again, right?
Yeah.
And he's all good. In combat sport, if you have an off day, you're getting knocked out, right? And that could be the end of your career after that, because it's like it rolls on.
Yeah, if nothing else, it has definitely shifted what the next performance is going to be like. You know, it's one of those things that compounds as well.
We've seen a lot of, and you see a lot of it with guys that have never been touched up before. They've never been hit. They've never been, and then out of nowhere, they have an off day.
It's consecutive after that.
And they just rolls on, you know?
Yeah.
So
I guess that is a big difference. But again, like I think just when you want to compartmentalize them and just say that there are some professions where you just can't really, you're not afforded the luxury of some padding to take it a little bit easier. It's just not.
You just got to know your own, again, self-awareness. You got to know your own limits, you know? And a lot of that, unfortunately, comes down to pushing the limit and going, that's too far.
It's too far.
You know? Because like we all want to do a lot all the time.
Yeah.
Most of us do. Sometimes people want to do least, and then they're like wondering why they're not getting there. And then it's like, you got to be self-aware and go, hey, could you do more? Probably could, you know? And taking the ego out of it and going, nah, I'm making excuses all the time. Like, oh, I'm not doing it because of this. I'm not doing it because of that. It's like, is it a priority? Yeah, but you're not doing it. It's like, is it really a priority then? So that's a whole different conversation when you're doing less, right? Well, people that are doing too much, you need to go, okay, this is obviously a priority for you, but where's the longevity in this? You might be able to do a bunch of shows. You might be able to do if you're a backup dancer, like the whole Beyonce. Yeah. I use that because like I got to meet some of Beyonce's backup dancers once, and they're so cool. But I could tell that they just like dance, appearance, sleep. You know,
yeah.
What are you doing after this? Bed. Oh, okay. It's like fair enough, dude. It's fair enough, you know. But that's the thing. It's like they know that about themselves. Now, if they push themselves, they might have a good couple of months, and then out of nowhere they're just like, I'm so tired and run down and mentally not good. It's like, yeah, take care of yourself.
Look, when I was thinking about, when I mentioned about people that are like just locked in and just got this linear mindset and it's just this particular way, it was Kobe Bryant that came to mind. And actually just occurred to me that, you know, you had one-on-one interaction. He was one of the people that you worked with. Like, how sustainable is that? Like, is that something that I guess you worked with him post-retirement, so that's a complete shift in who he was. But he was still definitely very astute and very focused. But did he allow room, even with someone of his caliber, did he allow space to rest, to have the respite, or was it just a freight train?
Oh, no, he was like, he decided to go for a walk down the Yarra, thinking it would be chill. And I was like, you're going to get swamped, dude. He's like, I just want to go for a walk, you know? He took time for himself. He went to see the Harry Potter show. Yeah. It was almost late to his own speaking event at Crown because he was like, the show went for 4 hours and we didn't know. So he definitely took time out of his day for himself. And spending time with him, what was eye-opening for me, and this is talking about being a father now, there's a few people in my life that made me go, okay, maybe it's time to start thinking about being a father. And he was the top of that list because all he did was talk about his family and his kids the whole time and how proud he was. And anyone, like, you come and talk to him about basketball, like he loves basketball. That's his thing. And I said this about Shaq. It's like you find what they actually love, talk to them about that. That's how you really want to connect with someone because that's when you get to know them on a real level, right? The human level. What do they actually love? Kobe loved wizards and Harry Potter. Like, he was obsessed with that. And you talk to him about Harry Potter, he's like, yeah, sick. But you talk to Kobe about his kids and his face lights up. You know, he talked about fatherhood. Like, it's really sad now, obviously in hindsight. And it was really heartbreaking at the time. But that guy's, from the time I got with him, his biggest, I guess, achievement in his eyes and his biggest passion point was his family and kids. And for him to have that and to see how much time he did spend with his family shows that he did know how to navigate that world. You know, he did know how to go, okay, I got to work and now I got to be a dad. Now I got to be a husband. Now I got to, you know, he did have that good life balance. And it showed because he was happy.
He was living it out. Yeah.
He was living it out, but he was happy. So many people at the peak of their success are so unhappy. And you're like, why? And it's like, because the things that is cultivating your soul People forget it. It's like there's a thing within you that you need to cultivate. The thing that really sets your soul alive. You're not cultivating it. Like, you can get to the peak. I know that if I look back in my life, some of the times where I was at the peak of my life in certain things, I was really unhappy because the things that I really loved, or the things that really cultivated my heart and my soul, I wasn't putting any energy into, right? No energy at all. And I was like, yeah, but I was success driven. And then once I found that balance between the two, it was like, okay, like I can navigate these two now. And you start to appreciate your successes a lot more when you are in that place of appreciation, you know? It's an interesting place to be because, you know, like you could get to the end of your life and you've achieved so much. But if your heart doesn't feel good, like, it's good, like, you've done a lot, but how's your soul? You know, like, how's your spirit? How are you internally? Like, it's a very powerful moment when you align the two, you know? And for Kobe Bryant, I felt like he was. That's my personal opinion from spending time with him and knowing his career and his life and his values. He really was a person that had that balance. And spending time with him and seeing how he lit up when you spoke about those things, and not in a way of guilt of like, oh yeah, I do love him, but I don't see him. It's like, yeah, I love my family. I love being around him. And this is why I love my daughter. And this daughter does this and blah, 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 blah. And you're just like, this guy's such a dad, man. And you know, I get like that too. Talk about my son doing all these things. If you want to talk about photography, I can talk about it all day, right? It's cool. But you want to talk about like fatherhood and my kids, because that's what I'm passionate about, being a good dad. I look at my son and I see the things that he's doing, and it's like, I get so excited, you know, like I talk about his little achievements and he can now pronounce words correctly, which sometimes I hate, man. Like, dude, say it cute again, you know, like say it like a cute kid again, man. But it's just like, you know, that's my passion point. Or traveling. I love going out into nature or traveling and just not taking a camera and just taking it in now, because that for me is like, that sets me alight, you know. Or I love filming these videos that no one's ever going to see for myself, and I hold on to that and I'll look back at it like at 2 a.m. sometimes, and I'm like, oh, and I go, oh yeah, I love that I filmed that. And I don't show anybody, or I will eventually, you know. There's stuff that I'll post, but that's setting me alight, you know. So there's things that have to set you alight, but you know, without that balance between the two, you're going to end up probably bitter, you know.
Yeah, and it's something that you have to be constantly actively working on, right? Like, you got to be evaluating. Same with that self-awareness. And yeah, that's you know, when I say that I take a lot of things personally, it's not said with pride. It's more matter of fact, and it's something that needs to be constantly evaluated and trying to separate this from that, you know. But I do like how, you know, working with these really prolific people, that the biggest takeaway that you got from them is the human element, and that's something that we easily we ignore. And we know, when you're driven towards a goal, that goal could be too far removed from where you are now, and almost like an abstract idea, but then the closer you get to it, the more that it engulfs you, and it just sort of just almost takes over. And it can, like, when you start to really resonate, it can take over, and then you start to then like cull away the things that you feel aren't contributing towards that, but in actual fact they all are, right? Like the family component of your life, that's got to be the biggest contributor to everything outside of it as well. So, you know, you got to feed that in order for it to then feed into the rest of it.
Absolutely, you know. And I think it's like, you realize how important those younger years are on kids, and you're building the future and the future generations. I think that, for me at least, is what is important to me. You know, I look at my son and I see the little seeing him experience the world brand new almost makes you do the same thing. He goes, wow, dude, kid will see like a tree with a funny leaf. Look at this leaf. And I'm like, yeah, that is an interesting leaf. Yeah. But if I was walking past that tree, I wouldn't even look at the tree. I'd be in my own world trying to do this, or I'm trying to do that, and I'm trying to navigate these things. The simplicity of how kids see things is such an eye-opening thing. It's like, it takes you back to bare basics, and then you rebuild back on top of it.
That
you know?
is a very important lesson. And I spoke with Liam Sardea. He's a philosopher of creativity. And that was his biggest nugget of wisdom that he shared was we have to go back and be more childlike and create without limitations and without labels, without boundaries, and try to see the world as a kid does. Like just seeing everything, almost like you're seeing it for the first time. Do you? How much Bluey do you get to watch?
Well, not as much.
Oh,
I can't emotionally handle that. I've cried in Bluey.
Of course, of course.
Dude, I remember my wife and I watched, what is it, The Wedding? Have you seen the one? It's called The Wedding. It goes for like 20 minutes. Dude, even talking about it just ruined me.
Yeah.
I was watching Bluey with my wife and we looked at each other. We're just like,
Half the episodes get me, man.
dude, I was crying. I was ugly crying, and my wife's kind of like, she's crying a little bit. She's like, ooh, like.
Just reminded me about what you were saying, the one Born Yesterday, when the dad just pretends he was just born yesterday, and how you're able to then look through the lens of a kid and just be wowed by everything. I play this game with Lennox. He's my oldest, and sometimes like he's like, I'm bored. I'm like, sweet, let's go. Like, and we'll just find something, anything. Like, okay, let's have a look at this. Like, it could just be like a mug. Like, look at this, man. Someone came up, like, this mug holds water. Water can't escape from it. It's this perfectly formed shape. You know, once upon a time, we needed a vessel to carry water, and then someone decided to make out of clay a fucking mug. And, like, isn't that just incredible? Like, where do we get the materials from that? We dug it from the ground. The ground made the fucking clay that's made this mug. Isn't that not fascinating? You know, just start thinking and peeling back some of the layers. Like, we take too many things for granted and we don't see how incredible so many things are. So I'm trying to get Lennox just to even just go back to that. It's like, just be wowed by everything, because everything is incredible. Everything you can find wonderment in anything. You just got to look for it. Yeah.
You can find anything to appreciate. Like people, things, just take it down to its bare basics and go, I love that, you know?
Yeah.
That's why Bluey was good for that. You know what it was? It was an adult writing through the eyes of a child, right? So they were writing through the eyes of a child of what life looks like. It was putting an adult's mind through a child's wonder, right? So, and seeing life as a child. So that's why there's a perfect balance why kids and adults love it. Because as a kid, you can see yourself, but as an adult, you can still see yourself, but you see yourself through your kid's eyes. And you're like, bro.
Yeah.
It full ruined me. Like, so many of those episodes, I'm like, damn. Even the things that I say, like, my son will come in at 2 a.m. and he's like, he needs a cuddle because he's scared. I'm like, oh man, just go to bed. Like the tired part of me is like, go back to bed. But then it's like, there's an episode where the kid needs the warmth. I don't know if you've seen the one with the planets.
Oh my God, where Bingo was dreaming?
Bro.
Oh Jesus. Yeah.
Get out. You know? I was just like trying to dehydrate me this show, crying too much. You know, water prices went up because of this show, man. Like, it was just like, it's just hitting a point. I guarantee no kids have cried at Bluey, but every adult's had a teary once if they've watched it properly as a parent.
For sure.
You know? And the wedding one was about, like, as I was saying, the wedding episode goes for about 20 minutes long. If you haven't watched it, watch it, especially as a dad who's in their own profession, because there's such a drive to be the provider, to be like, logically, I'm making all these decisions. He starts a new job somewhere else. They have to buy a new house, a bigger house in a city that's foreign. But the kid's mental, emotional well-being is so like intertwined with his community, because kids they love community. Like, you are their people. They don't care about assets and the financial well-being of the world and jobs. They wait to go to daycare to spend time with their friends and see their teacher and spend time with you. And they're a community. Kids love community, right? So their well-being kind of gets hurt, and you can see this like this tear of the dad trying to be the provider financially. It's a good opportunity for us, but also trying to be the provider emotionally and be that, right? So, dude, the episode just ruins you, and you're like, damn, man. Like, sometimes I do think about money too much, but my son, like, I know there's so many times I'll be sitting on the laptop working, my son's trying to play with me. I was like, not now. But then I only get that day. Tomorrow I don't get that day. Like, it's gone. And what did I do? I could have spent that 20 minutes that night when he goes to bed, or I could have spent whatever. But for them, it's like their core memories, you know. So it's so important to you know, to put your energy into actually your child's emotional and mental well-being, and realize that your whole world is like, my whole world is my work and my people around me and whatever, blah, blah. Their whole world is you. They don't come home and get on Facebook. They don't get home and do all these things. They get home and they're spending time with you. You know, so you gotta be really conscious that you're building the foundations and building blocks, especially in the first 5 years of this whole child's view of the world.
Yeah.
And how loved and cared for they are, you know? So, and their value might come from, they might have issues in the future with like not feeling valued and things, blah, blah, because maybe we didn't give them, you know, the attention that they needed at a young age.
I hear you, man. What's that line's like, you know, at the end of it all, the only people who are going to remember that you worked overtime are your kids.
Yeah.
You're like,
yeah.
Yeah.
And my wife.
Yeah.
She tells me.
She'll remind you.
Are you going to like be with your family today? I was like, yes.
Yeah, we do that sometimes because my wife, she runs her own business. So it's, you know, we'll sometimes be like, are you here?
Yeah.
Where are you? But I know that like I'm definitely guilty of not being present. A lot. And that's something that I'm trying to curb.
It's a subtle dad trait.
Yeah,
we're doing our best.
Be
conscious of it, but know that it's not always a bad thing to be thinking about other things because you do have to manage a lot more outside of your world. But be able to snap back and go, okay, now my energy needs to be here, and knowing that balance between the two is its own journey. You know,
the whole like when you say that you're sitting and you type something, I've got editing, got my headphones on, and my links will come up, and then I'm just like I'm dialed in, I'm focused, and then I'm like, just give me a minute. And then, like, for him, it's just like, I just want to show you something quick. And I'm like, hang on, just give me a minute. Then as soon as, like, I give him the attention, like, the moment's gone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, And for me, it's just like, at that time, like, why are you bothering me now? Because I'm just shitty.
Yeah.
But then later on, I'm like, I fucked that up.
Yeah.
I fucked that up.
But I've realized now there's, like, little cues, right? Because I'm just, like, aware. Like, my son will ask me, so I bought him so much Lego because as a kid I loved Lego and I still kind of like Lego. Like I don't really play with it much now, but I'm just like, I think it's so cool. And I bought him all this Lego, right? He doesn't play with it. It just sits there. But the couple of times like I've been like, let's play Lego with him. He gets really excited, right? Yeah. And we'll go in and we'll play it together, but he'll never play by himself. And I started noticing that he'll come up and be like, Dada, like he'll be annoying me. He's like, Dada, do you want to play Lego? And I know that what he's really asking is like, can you spend quality time with me?
It's not about Lego.
And it's not even about Lego. If I said that I really liked gardening, which whenever I go, I need to do some gardening, he gets the watering can now by himself and does stuff. And he goes like, can we do this? Because I'm like, it's not even about that. It's about that quality time that they're trying to have with you and being aware of like those social cues. Because kids go, I know that dad will spend time with me with Lego. And it's like, okay, maybe I need to put the laptop down, you know? I was like, it's not even about, I'm like, do you want to do something else? Yeah, what do you want to do? This. Okay, done. Doesn't have to be Lego. But thank you for like giving me that, you know, that moment to kind of, you know, reevaluate it.
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kids are fun.
They most certainly are a lot of fun. If you go in with the attitude of let's fucking just drop your guard and go for it. You let them lead the way. If you let them lead the way.
Oh, man. And kids bring to the surface all the shit of you. I go, man, I've got patience issues. I've got issues with not my anger towards them, but certain things, and I'll get grumpy. Like, Dad, relax. You realize that when you look at your kid, you're looking at a mirror, and they'll act and do things in a certain way. You're like, I need to work on myself. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, kids are the biggest mirrors in the world. You know what I mean? And you realize as well that when you're spending so much quality time with your kid, that you're really building, like, I'd say legacy in a non like Achilles, like real like.
It's a legacy.
But you're building a personal legacy there through your child, you know? So it's really important to go, okay, you know, like what can I do to help in the best way for this child? Like,
and don't impart your bullshit onto them.
Nah, man. Yeah. Like,
as much as you can help it. Anyway.
100%, you know? And I don't want him to see me in my bullshit for a while until he understands how to navigate it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be walking around angry. I don't want to be walking around... If he sees me being spiteful towards somebody, he's going to pick up on that eventually. Yeah. You know, like, kids are the biggest, like, energy sponges. Like, and you know, like, if you're if you're having an argument with your wife in another room and you come out there grumpy at each other, your kid just out of nowhere is just sad. And you're like, they're just energy sponges. Yeah. You know, you got to be really careful of what you bring to the table when you're, you know, of yourself. You know, like, again, this whole podcast has been self-awareness, right? You got to be very self-aware. you know, when you've got a kid, because you've got to be like, hey man, am I really, even if I'm not verbally saying something, the energy that I'm bringing into the room right now, is this the best thing for my child? You know, and sometimes it's not, you know, and the energy that I'm giving to him by being standoffish and doing something else, is that the energy I want to bring into the room, you know? Or if I'm grumpy at my wife because she told me to unload the dishwasher 16 times, am I being, you know, for one, should have unloaded the dishwasher, my bad. Am I self-aware enough to go, that's my bad? If I'm not and I'm being grumpy about it, am I doing it, when I say grumpy, I'm talking about like, not just being like whatever, but I'm like, am I bringing a bad attitude into this room that my kid's going to pick up on? It's like, you know, we need to give our kids the best, and you need to obviously introduce them to every, you know, plethora of emotions and things like that. But again, they're a mirror, you know, like, you know, do your absolute best.
Check yourself, man.
Yeah. You know, if my kid's going to deal with a bully, I don't want to be the bully, but I want to teach him how to deal with bullies. You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
If my kid's going to deal with an angry or a sad person, I don't want to be the one that's presenting that to him. I want to help him be the solution to that. Hey, is this person at daycare sad? Yeah. Why are they sad? Okay. Are you okay? Are you sad? Yeah. Why are you sad? Like, you want to help them build the logic behind those emotions. You don't want to be the reason that they're having them.
You want to. It's really important to have your kids. You want them to have a good relationship with their emotions and just to be able to understand it.
Feel them.
Feel it out.
Navigate them.
Yeah, understand it. Like, really just live in that moment. It's like, you feel like shit, okay, then feel like shit and feel that. Understand what it is and just try to play it back and work it back and try to understand, how did you get to this position? Yeah.
I'm big on, like, if my son's angry, why are you angry? And if he's not going to listen to me in that moment, if he's yelling, I'm not going to be like, yell back. It's just like, what's the point of that? It's just like doubling down on what they're doing. If they're angry, just give them a breather and then come back and go, so talk. And, you know, once they're all calm, it's like, so you're angry, why are you angry? You know, let's talk about it. Let's get to the bottom of it.
Give
them
space just to feel that.
Yeah. Especially as a boy dad, like, you don't realize how much your son looks to you as that. I think it is, what I've noticed is in those really early years, mum's the nurturer, things like that, blah, blah. But then there comes like, you know, all the amazing things that mums do. Mums are the best, bro. I got the best mum. My wife's the best. I'm sure your wife's the best. All wives are the best. So I don't get cancelled. But what I'm saying is that there's a grey area where the son starts to really look up to you and kind of look to you for guidance, because they understand that there's something there. You know, there's a bit of a connection there. Like, they start to model themselves after. I think your son's hero until they're like 8. And then it's actual superheroes until they're like 13 or 14. And then from that age, it's like sports stars. They've done like a thing, or like movie stars. They get like a public celebrity that they kind of idolize. There's like a psychological public eye thing that the kids kind of like model themselves after. And so you've got a certain amount of years as a dad, right? Of a son, we're talking about, where they're going to look to you as like, that's my hero. So what are you going to, knowing that, now that you know that, what are you going to do with that information? You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to do the best I can to be the best version of myself, whether it be taking care of my health or taking care of my whatever, blah, blah, but also just navigating his feelings and emotions. You know what I mean? Navigating where he's at, because eventually he's not going to look to me for that information. You remember being like 13 and your dad's like, you shouldn't do that. You're like, I don't care what you say because blah, blah, school's cool and he does this. Like, I know I was like that. Like, all teenagers are like that. They actually don't want to listen to their parents. So you've got a certain amount of time where it's like, you've really got their ear and their eye, and those are the seeds that you're sowing into their life to help them get to the next place. So you need to do your best with it, you know?
That's beautiful, man. So you're in a bit of a transition now, being New Year's, and you're about to jump into some hefty projects coming up.
Yeah.
Can you share anything about that, or we just have to wait and see?
I think this year I'm going to be doing a little bit of, my work is kind of navigated into a new area, which I'm really loving, which is really funny. And I spoke to you about this off camera a couple of days ago. It's like, I started photography because I wanted to get into travel.
Going back full circle now in this conversation.
And I think most of my work is going to be around travel this year. I really want to put my energy into seeing the world a lot more. And I've got a bit of travel coming up with work, which is going to be a lot of fun. I'll be heading to Sri Lanka next month for a few weeks to do some work, which wasn't on my list, but I can't wait, you know. But there's a few other countries that hopefully this year, once we're locked in, I'll be able to to share a bit more on. But I really feel that my space this year is in the travel space. I'll be doing still a bit of work in like the UFC and a few other areas, like with a few people. But I definitely feel the shift in my focus this year being there. And I kind of, again, like I'm feeling the room out, and I'm like, I can really feel that this is my travel year. You know, my intuition is telling me that. It's like, you know, and I think you got to have a mix of intuitive thought, as well as logical. You know, so it's like you got to feel that out. So I think, yeah, intuitively I'm feeling, and my soul is telling me it's time to kind of see the world a bit this year, and that's going to be where I'm at.
Maybe that was like, to go back to what we were talking about before about like goal setting, is that you had to go on this massive arc, you know, and you learnt all those lessons working in sport and working in music to then take you back to where the genesis of which was travel. And now with this whole bag of experience that you've accumulated over the years, you're able to inject a new flavor into travel.
100%. If I had have, and I know that if I had traveled back then, I wouldn't have probably experienced it the way that I would experience it now.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I wouldn't have probably captured it the way I would want to capture it. It's probably not the right timing. Like, and I'm a big believer in like divine timing. Like maybe it's a bit superstitious, but I do feel like things happen for a reason. And I do think that if there's something out of your hands for whatever reason, or again, intuitively, I feel like I'm meant to be somewhere else, that's for a reason. Like, you should listen to your gut. You should always listen to your gut, right? Not always. If your gut's telling you to go and like
get lunch,
yeah, or like steal someone's, you know, like car, that's not good intuition. Like, check yourself, bro. But what I'm saying is, like, with certain things in life, you know, like, you should move. My favorite two pillars of that is move intuitively and intentionally. So it's like move with, you know, I have a goal that I want, and move with your intention. So yeah, it has come a full circle. You know, like I did start doing that, and I have traveled over the years, of course. Like I released a book about Japan a few years ago that did really well and sold out within like 24 hours. It was amazing. But it was like a travel book, all shot on 35mm film. Like, that was still travel work, right? But it wasn't my main focus that year. I just feel like this year is the year. It's like, this is kind of like where you reap what you sow. Like, I've done all this other stuff, and now we're back where you actually started, and you're going to be able to build off the top of that, you know?
That's beautiful, man. So much wisdom on this episode, dude. Love it. Where can people find you? Where can people find your shit?
Like my home address?
Your home address.
No. Maybe not. No, so obviously Instagram.
Where do you work?
I socialize and post a lot of my fun work on Instagram. It's probably the best place to find me.
Yeah.
I don't really. If you find me on Facebook, probably don't add me because I don't really check it, and I probably won't accept because I don't look at it. But yeah, just the.seawolf on Instagram. So CWOLF. The Seawolf is where I'm at. Yeah, and thanks for having me, bro.
Dude, Josh Scott, man, thank you so much, mate. Hey. I've got so much out of this episode. I this just, you know, having our paths cross and being able to connect with you and just to pick your brain on some things that outside of my wheelhouse, you know, when you step into the world of photography and project management, doing all that, it's been quite eye-opening to hear some of your stories and the takeaways. So I really appreciate you sharing it, man.
Man, thank you for having me. It's been mad fun. Yeah. I'm sorry that your camera kept kicking out.
They don't know that because it's going to be edited out.
I know. They'll know now, I told them.
They'll know now.
Yeah, it's my fault.
Yeah.
Bro, high five.
Yeah. We're going to cut this out. Dude.
That's going to be in it. Done.
That's in it.
Keep it in. Keep it in. I didn't realize I could do this the whole time. I would have just like moved and like talked like this and then came back and, you know, explained things this way. I was so rigid. Yeah. So, yeah, if anyone playing at home, if you're going to be interviewed next, just know that you can grab it here and talk more.
Don't recommend it.
I don't recommend it. No, maybe don't put this in there. Done. Right. No, thank you for having me, man. It's been great.